Okay, so what I was saying is, if you were to rotate each of these jaw joints just a little bit, then you would end up with a pretty wide open mouth. Okay, so that's why we include all these. Now it turns out that we have an upper jaw joint too, which is part of this upper head joint. Okay, and it actually, typically we have joints that come out like this to represent the upper jaw, and we can use those the same way as we use the lower jaw. Now it seems a little crazy, but it's cartoon, and we need to be able to mush this character around however the animator desires. Okay, so we'll have all those joints. Now we also have, connected to this upper head joint, we'll have obviously an eye joint. And the eye joint would be dead center of the eyeball. Okay. Now, what's it controlled besides the eye, though? If you move your eyes, if you look really far over the left or right, or up and down, you'll feel your eyeballs actually pull on the skin around your eye. It actually mushes around your eye. Now, if you want a good facial rig, you will have to represent that. Okay? Now, that represents that, right? Now, but also, we have two more joints here on the eye. One represents the entire eye, and these other two were parented to that joint, but they're at the exact same location. One of those is going to control the upper eyelid, and one is going to control the lower eyelid. And so you can rotate them from the exact same location as the eyeball without affecting the eyeball. But you can close and open the eyelids. Okay. Now, we're also going to have a joint here at the base of the nose, because we want our characters to be able to wiggle their nose. Sometimes we actually want to pose the face, and that may mean sliding the nose over on the face so that it looks good at that particular point of view. It may not be centered on the face anymore, but oh yeah, that's done all the time. Yeah. So we've got a nose, okay? Now, and this is all like the way I'm describing all this. This is what's called procedural rigging. It's not really very procedural, but I think a more appropriate term for it is hands-on. Like this sort of facial rig is a hands-on facial rig. We're not going to use any blend shapes. Okay. Now, those are all just joints. Okay. Now we also want to be able to represent our brow movement, and now we're getting into representing muscles. Okay. So we're going to have a joint up here at the top of the eye, and it's going to control the entire brow. Okay, so now let me come up here. So we have our brow joint, and it's going to be like right here. Okay, and it's going to control everything out here. And so we can rotate the entire brow from this point. We can make them furrow their brow or do all kinds of extreme motion with this singular joint. But also, we're going to attach bones all down this brow. And what does that line up with? It lines up with this muscle, right? The frontalis. Okay, so we can control this brow all up and down it individually. And so we have one main joint that has a subjoint right on top of it, plus 4 other subjoints that can be moved individually. Okay, so we're building up a lot of joints really fast. Okay, and again, obviously this will be mirrored to the other side. Now, we have our eye joint, right? And we have our eyelid joints. Well, each eyelid joint will have a subset of joints so that we can control the shape of the eyelid. Because it doesn't just open and close. Not in cartoon, it doesn't. You need to be able to reshape that eyelid to get more emotion out of it. Okay, and the same for the bottom one. It's going to have a set of joints on the bottom of the eyelid. Okay, now it's important to know though, when you're doing these, anytime you have opposing anatomy, so like an upper eyelid and a lower eyelid, that you want to have the same number of influence objects on the top and the bottom. So we have the same number of joints on the top of the eyelid as we have on the bottom of the eyelid. You know, the same number of joints on the top of the mouth as we have on the bottom of the mouth. Okay. Now we switch back over here. Now you notice we have this muscle that goes around the mouth here. So we actually need a joint that represents the mouth as a whole. And what this joint does is it allows us to actually pose the mouth to the camera. We can actually change where the mouth is at on the face so that it makes more sense to the camera. Okay, now this works just like the eye. So, you know, we got to try to keep our thoughts organized and don't overcomplicate it. It's just like the eye. And so we'll have a set of joints connected to this that represent the bottom and the top of the mouth. And so I should go up here and do that. So this would be our main mouth joint. And we would have, you know, one in the corner. And this is actually pretty typical right here. So we'd have one in the center, bottom and top, and then 2 in between the corner and the center on the bottom and the top. Okay, and then obviously that would mirror over. Okay, now what do these joints follow? What do these mouth joints follow? Because they're right in between the upper part of the skull and the jaw. Well, the answer is they follow both. And so we have a third joint that pivots right here as the upper head joint and the jaw joint. And that third joint is kind of like our helper joint that we created on the bird wing. It's going to be told to rotate halfway between these other 2 joints. But it pivots from the exact same location. But the animator will not have control over that. Okay. So we built up a lot of joints. Now, there's one thing we've got left to represent. One major thing. And that's cheeks. That's actually not a muscle at all. I mean, you have muscle in your cheeks, but the character needs to be able to puff their cheeks out. Okay? If they get frustrated or something, or buzz their lips or something like that, they're going to need to puff their cheeks. And so we need a joint that represents that. And so that's going to be right in here. Okay? Now, the location of that, this is kind of where it would be on the surface, but we need to be able to puff it out. And so we would actually move it in